The first snow of the season had already settled into the ruts of the trail when Jonah Hale noticed the woman walking alone, her small trunk dragging behind her, boots worn thin, shoulders shaking, not from cold alone but from something heavier. And Jonah reined in his horse because out here you learn to read the land and the people on it. And everything about her said she did not belong on that road by herself, not with night coming on and wolves already howling from the timber. And when he asked if she needed help, her voice came out steady but tired as she said her name was Eleanor Price and that she had been sent for by Jonah's neighbor, a man named Fletcher Boone, who had paid for a mail order bride and then never shown up at the station, never sent word, never answered when she knocked at his ranch gate. And Jonah felt a slow anger rise because he knew Fletcher's kind. Men who wanted wives like tools and discarded them when reality didn't match their imagining. And he told Eleanor that Boone had ridden east 2 weeks ago after losing his cattle and his nerve, leaving debts and broken promises behind. And the news hit her like another snowfall, quiet but crushing. Because she had sold everything she owned to come west, believing in letters filled with promises of a home. And Jonah saw the calculation in her eyes as she weighed the dark road against the stranger offering help, and he didn't rush her, just told her she could stay the night at his cabin, nothing owed, nothing expected, because the weather would kill her before pride ever could. And after a long moment she nodded, climbing onto the spare horse with a dignity that told Jonah she hadn't always been this desperate. And the ride to his cabin passed in silence, broken only by wind and creaking leather. And when they arrived, Jonah lit the stove, poured coffee, handed her bread and stew without comment. And Eleanor ate slowly at first, and then like someone remembering what hunger felt like, and as the fire warmed the room, she finally let herself look around, noticing how clean the place was, how carefully everything was kept, how loneliness showed itself not in mess, but in order. And Jonah told her she could sleep in the bed while he took the chair, and she argued once before accepting. And later, as the wind battered the walls, Jonah lay awake thinking about how easily a life could be derailed by someone else's cowardice, and how this woman, abandoned and brave, had stepped into his quiet world like a question he didn't know he was ready to answer. And if you want to see how a single night of kindness can change 2 lives forever, subscribe now, because this story is only just beginning. Morning came pale and cold, the world outside wrapped in white, and Eleanor stood at the window when Jonah woke, her breath fogging the glass as she watched the sun lift over the hills, and something about seeing her there, not as a guest but as a presence, unsettled him in a way that wasn't unpleasant. And over breakfast she offered to work for her keep, to cook, clean, sew, anything. Because Charity sat poorly with her, and Jonah told her she didn't owe him labor for basic decency. But if she wanted to stay until the roads cleared, she was welcome, and days turned into weeks as snow fell and melted and fell again, and Eleanor proved herself not fragile but capable, mending fences with frozen fingers, reading ledgers Jonah never quite understood, bringing laughter into a cabin that had known only silence since his parents passed, and the town noticed, whispers starting as they always did, about the abandoned bride and the quiet cowboy. And Jonah braced himself for judgment until he realized something had shifted inside him, because he no longer cared what men who abandoned women thought of him. And one evening Eleanor confessed she planned to leave come spring to find work as a teacher or seamstress, because she could not build her life on borrowed kindness. And Jonah surprised himself by the weight of loss that thought brought, by the fear of returning to a cabin that echoed again. And when he finally spoke, it was awkward and honest, telling her he hadn't meant to fall in love, but that he had, slowly, without realizing, in the way she stirred coffee, in the way she faced hardship without bitterness. And Eleanor cried not from sadness but relief, because she admitted she had felt it too but didn't dare hope, having already been promised a future once and left standing in the snow. And Jonah told her he would never promise what he couldn't give, only a life built day by day, hard but shared, and she said that was all she had ever wanted, and when spring finally came the cabin no longer felt like a shelter but a home, built not by contract